month of drama. The World Championship for 2018 is officially behind us, and with that, we roll into the darkness that is the off-season. Welcome to League on Lock. My name's Eric. Thank you guys for joining us, and we're going to go back and look at the fastest World Championship final of all time between IG and Fnatic. I thought this was going to be one of the closest finals that we've ever seen in the history of the World Championship. Man, was that not the case whatsoever. But before we get into what Fnatic did wrong in their matchup, we got to take a look at what Riot did right in the opening ceremonies for this year's Worlds. It was going to be difficult for them to match what they did in 2017 at the Bird's Nest with the augmented reality dragon that they dropped in to the arena, but they did pretty well here in 2018. There was a lot of hype in this event, and they had some more AR, this time with the KDA gang. They had their, I don't know what you want to call them, their anime characters that they had with the big release and the music video that they had, along with, you know, the actual members of the group on the stage. And their act and performance was fantastic. The Rise one was a little bit more underwhelming and not quite as good. The vocals were definitely not as on point, and I wasn't a big fan of the Bobby remix that they did, but nonetheless, you had levitating stages. IG and Fnatic were moving across the entire venue over the crowd, and then they had this super cool moment where you jump into this magical other dimension, and they ran through the previous World Championships and the teams that got there, and then eventually the Summoners Cup. She falls through this magical portal again, and then voila, somehow the Summoners Cup is magically on stage. So the performers were fantastic, and the lead-up caster June was all amazing, as he always is at these events. So I really liked the opening ceremony. Obviously, the main disappointment was there was no huge announcement from Riot. We didn't even get a champion teaser. Definitely no sniff of what their new game is going to be, assuming still that they are making one, because there's so many things pointing towards it. That video that recapped Worlds throughout the years also kind of recapped 2018, and I thought that was going to be then when the reveal, or at least the big Easter egg, would be there for the future, because they were showing out the Annie cinematic that they did a while ago, obviously the Rise one, but nothing about any sort of new game. But overall, still really enjoyed the opening ceremony, and I was hyped. I was ready for a fantastic series, and that wasn't the case. So why wasn't it a fantastic series? What happened to Fnatic? Why did they not put up a fight? They won 2 out of 3 against IG in the group stage. They were looking like an absolute force to be reckoned with. You run into the finals, and IG just completely destroy them from the very early games of Game 1. I know people love to blame drafts, as you do, because when you lose a game, it's immediately the coach's fault, and you blame them for doing some bad drafts. But overall, Bwipo and Caps, I was shocked at how disrespectfully they were playing against the Cheyenne rookie, who just completely destroyed G2, who, oh, by the way, their focus is obviously the solo laners as well in Wonder and Perks. You had to have watched that and seen how badly they destroyed them and how much jungle attention. Ning is rarely going to go bottom lane to help out Jackie Love and Baolon. So if you're Bwipo and Caps, you got to be anticipating that there's going to be a jungler almost around your lane 24/7. So many times they went for an aggressive trade or walked too far forward to get some CS, and they were heavily punished by Ning or just Rookie and the Shy going super aggressive on them when they're making those misplays. Hylissang, it just felt like he was doing too much, or trying to do too much to get his team back into it. You can't really blame him for that. Obviously, one of the key matchups coming into this series was Ning versus Broxa in the jungle, and Broxa completely destroyed Ning in those first matchups. Obviously, the total opposite here. Ning definitely showed up big time, obviously because he got MVP of the entire series. We'll break down how well Ning played a little bit later on. But for one of the big pick ban things that I think you can look towards for Fnatic from this set is they were picking late game comps in a lot of these. Game 1, you had Reckless on the Jhin. I like the bans that IG were doing, targeting the Sivir and Tristana against Reckless. Those were definitely solid bans because the Jhin did not work in Game 1, and Fnatic had such a priority on that Urgot pick. 3 games in a row in that top lane, 2 for Bwipo and 1 for Soaz up there, and it really did not work. And you saw in the semifinals, people were going away from that pick. Yes, it's banned most of the time, but it was definitely not nearly as big a priority as things like the Aatrox, even the Victor. We saw Caps pull out the Victor in Game 3. It's still a nice flex pick. You would have definitely expected that to be going top, but Caps did not look nearly as comfortable on that Victor as he did on other champions, or as Bwipo looked on that Victor. I know it was so as in that game, but Caps was maxing Q on mid lane Victor. That's what you're doing top lane, but mid you need the wave clear, especially because Rookie just shoved that lane and roamed around the entire map, and Caps was pretty much helpless in that lane against the Galio for Rookie. So definitely not the same Fnatic that we saw in the earlier rounds of Worlds 2018. And Young Buck afterwards was saying, you know, the physical toll of being in Korea for a month. But IG's been in Korea for a month as well. So I don't really know how that's much of an excuse, but I will say some of the players looked a little worse for wear in Reckless. A lot of them looked tired. Broxa looked tired, but it was just one more series. You think they could have held it together, but clearly not at the same level that they were for the rest of the tournament. So Young Buck, he mentioned the physical strain that they've been there for a month in Korea. And if you remember, once G2 was eliminated, he had a nice little tweet saying G2 didn't have the hunger to win a world championship. And of course, quickly after Fnatic lost handily to IG, Wonder, top laner for G2, decided to send that tweet the same way to Young Buck and saying they didn't have the hunger to win Worlds, which, come on, that's fine. If you're going to say that, Young Buck, then you got to be prepared for you to get backlash for it when you don't win the World Championship. So no problem with Wonder saying that. But then Young Buck got upset and, of course, responded by saying something along the lines of, the main difference between our teams is you guys were smiling and laughing right after your loss. Whereas, you know, I guess they were saying they were taking it more seriously. And then Ocelot jumped in and said, come on, that's one way to cope with a loss. It's just to try and see the positive, blah, blah, blah. So Ocelot's obviously sticking up for his player. Wonder also said that Fnatic is basically trolling in scrims throughout the Worlds event and told Young Buck to get his players in line during scrimming. And then Sheepy jumped in, head coach of Unicorns, who were formerly of the EU LCS, because they're not there in 2019. But he basically said Young Buck used to call out his players for not practicing the day before a finals match in EU, and he was roasting them too. So now all of a sudden, Fnatic were everyone's favorite team at Worlds, and then they have one terrible series that, yes, cost them the entire World Championship, but they still got to the finals. Now all of a sudden, they're public enemy number one for a lot of these guys. The minute Worlds ends, the EU friendship is over. G2 and Fnatic are back to being rivals and memeing each other over Twitter. So we're officially in the offseason now because the Twitter wars are already happening. But you still got to be happy for Fnatic if you're a Western fan or an EU fan. They got to the final, something no Western team has done in a very long time. They had a fantastic performance. Leave Caps alone. He had one bad series. Maybe he underperformed a little bit throughout the entire event, but across the board, you've still got to be so happy with how Fnatic performed. And IG, definitely deserving of that World Championship. Coming up after the break, we'll take a deeper look at Ning's MVP performance and how Rookie and the Shy performed at an all-time level. Hello, you beautiful people. We're back here on League Unlocked. My name is Eric, and Worlds 2018 behind us. One of the most anticlimactic finals in recent memory because we were expecting a back-and-forth affair, at least 4 games, but we could not even get that. We weren't even close to getting a 4th game, really. Fastest World Finals in the history of World Finals, which is a pretty impressive accomplishment considering how SKT dismantled Royal in Season 3. But how did IG do it? Well, the main reason was in that jungle, and Ning completely outperformed Broxa, which is shocking to me. Pretty much everyone, including us here, gave a huge advantage in the jungle to Fnatic because Broxa was the best jungler of the entire tournament heading into finals, and Ning was looking suspect at best. But he definitely put it together in the grand finals, and if he didn't, I mean, they would be in tough because Broxa was having his way, focusing bottom lane, getting everyone ahead, but Ning focused on the Shy and Rookie as he has done for the majority of 2018 to get them ahead, and they completely smashed this game. And he held his own against Broxa. Now, I know I just said he overperformed Broxa, but Broxa was not that bad. He still performed well, but Ning was just otherworldly. He looked like the first team all-pro jungler from the LPL that we saw in 2018 summer. And throughout all of 2018, he finally showed up here when it mattered most for Invictus, and was one of the catalysts for them to come away with the W. And one of the main things that he also did for his team, aside from the incredibly proactive early game, is he was drawing a whole lot of bans. The key game for me in this entire set was game 2 when he was on the Gragas, because he drew a Xin Zhao, Camille, and Talia ban, and then Broxa picked up the Lee Sin. Fnatic was clearly challenging his champion pool, and his Gragas looked terrible against Fnatic in that group stage, which is surprising because usually it's a comfortable pick for him, and man, did he show it in game 2. That absolute dunk for the double kill, and he was just camping Bwipo in that top lane. At times, it was tough to watch. I think Bwipo went 0-5 at one point to start a game. Caps was 0-5 in one of these games, and they were just not ever respecting the pressure that Ning was coming with in those solo lanes, because he was spending a lot of time there, and he even did get some kills punishing Hylissang with no flash in that bottom lane. He was all over the entire map, never getting counter jungled by the likes of Broxa. And just the pressure he put in that pick ban phase is one of the key reasons I think he did deserve that MVP in this series. And obviously these games were all over by 20 minutes basically. IG had such a huge lead by then, and a lot of that was because of Ning. IG got first turret in every single one of the games. 2 out of the 3 he got first blood, and when he got those first bloods, he completely snowballed those lanes out of control. Bwipo had no chance on that Urgot, and Caps on the Irelia, they thought he was getting a good matchup in that first game, but Ning completely swayed it in the way of Rookie. So congrats to Ning. It's fantastic to see him bounce back from some questionable plays in that group stage, especially those Gragas barrels and those ultis. He did have one bad one in the finals, but not enough to dissuade people from giving him MVP, and he does deserve it. But how can you talk about IG winning the first world championship ever for the LPL, 4th region to do that, without talking about Rookie and the Shy? And I think they put up a performance this Worlds that can only be rivaled by the likes of Marin and Faker at 2015 Worlds for the best solo laners duo that we've ever seen at Worlds. And you might even say you could put them ahead of Faker and Marin, because if they don't lose that base race to KT, they don't lose at all in the playoffs. They run a perfect 9-0 run to win the entire World Championship. I know 2015 SKT lost one whole game, but Rookie and the Shy, it was a perfect meta for them because it was so solo lane focused, and they definitely delivered as the 2 main carries for Invictus Gaming throughout their playoff run. And it was kind of just a dream run for them. We thought 2018 would be the year of the LPL. It was leading up to Worlds. It was all about RNG, but it's IG who get the final feather in the cap for China at 2018 Worlds. And for the likes of Rookie, who had crushing losses in spring and summer, you saw the tears when they lost to RNG. Well, he had tears of joy in the 2018 World Championship. And if you can't win back-to-back splits in the LPL, well, taking home a World Championship title is a pretty good thing to settle for. And even though the finals and really semifinals of the entire event at Worlds 2018 didn't lead up to the hype, didn't live up to the hype because they were all 3-0s. 2018 as a whole, I still think was definitely the most exciting and probably most interesting and just overall best World Championship that we've ever seen. And of course, it's because there was no one single favorite that you could look to and say, well, they're going to win. SKT, you have no chance. Samsung White, they're going to demolish everyone, although 2014, you thought it was going to be Samsung Blue. But there's usually 1 or 2 Korean teams. It's been Rox or SKT. Even Kingzone, you thought they were going to destroy, but they didn't. That wasn't the case here. It all started when you're seeing the likes of Gen G start 1 and 2, Afrika dropping games to G2. This was the year of the Western teams closing the gaps to try and avoid, I hate saying that because it's such a meme, but obviously 3 out of 4 of the semifinals were from the West, and you can say LCK had a bad read on the meta, which they probably did, but for all the flack Riot has gotten throughout the entirety of 2018 in terms of their just gameplay changes and meta shifts, from the ridiculousness of the bottom lane throughout the year, it actually culminated in a pretty sweet meta for Worlds, because you saw the Heimerdinger come in. You saw these kind of niche bot lane picks that weren't marksmen, the Victor for Cloud9. I was legitimately thinking maybe you see Bwipo in the bottom lane for Fnatic, maybe just at some point in the finals to try something different, but obviously didn't end up happening. But there were those niche picks that are off meta in that bottom lane, and I think that's what Riot was hoping for. This meta was all about fighting, and it was exciting because of that, because there were a whole lot of kills, and anytime it's the emphasis on the solo laners, these games are going to be ending a whole lot quicker, which you felt bad for Reckless in the finals because he never even got to late game to really participate in any of these games for Fnatic, because they were over. Breathe 30 minutes every game except for game 3, I believe it was. But the meta was exciting, and obviously the huge amount of upsets were also fantastic. And the fact that the majority of it was actually cast from the NALCS studios, the casters weren't even in the crowd, was not an issue whatsoever. So good job, Riot, for an extremely successful 2018 World Championship.